We are going to talk about English literature before Chaucer. Chaucer was an English poet who is generally considered the starting point of modern English literature, but some historians feel that Anglo Saxon, a foreign language kind of English, was the language through which Chaucer's Middle English and eventually the present English that we use was evolved. They term thus the Anglo-Saxon as Old English. Yet, Old English remains a very foreign language to the people who speak English today. Norman French, through the Norman conquest of 1066 AD, acquired England from Anglo-Saxons, and that language is very close to the present English that we speak, and through which Chaucer's Middle English also was evolved. Anglo-Saxon poetry, that is before Norman French occupied the England, the Angle land, England, Beowulf was produced by an anonymous author. Anglo-Saxon poetry, it's a part of Anglo-Saxon poetry. In this poem, Beowulf, the person Beowulf is the hero, and he killed the monster Grendel and next slew Grendel's mother, and after a gap of 12 years also went on to destroy a fiery dragon. Two of the most important poets of Anglo-Saxon poetry before Chaucer in the Anglo-Saxon period were these two poets, Caedmon and Cynewulf. Caedmon died about 680 AD, was a servant attached to the monastery of Whitby, Yorkshire, and he apparently got the power of verse as a divine gift in a dream. Cynewulf was born between 720 and 730 AD. The exact year is not known. He tells of himself in his book, Dream of the Rood, that initially he was a wandering gleeman and a lover of pleasure, but later on was converted by a vision of the cross, and thus wrote poems like Christ, Eileen, Juliana, which had fairly religious subjects. Anglo-Saxon poetry in general had sacred subjects and used to be full of love, of adventure and fighting. The love of fighting and adventure could be seen in the work The Battle of Brunanburh, which was later on also translated by Tennyson. Anglo-Saxon poetry had a unique feature that it began with rhymes, that it had beginning rhyme instead of end rhymes. Other important works of Anglo-Saxon period includes King Alfred's translation of the Latin ecclesiastical history of Venerable Bede. By ecclesiastical we mean related to the church, and Venerable Bede was a monk. Anglo-Saxon Chronicle is one of the most important works because it actually has the references and works of Anglo-Saxon period which we know of. After the Norman conquest in 1066, there was a general slump in the production of literature, and slowly only the revival took place. And the first noteworthy production of revival is considered the work Brut by Layamon in 1205. This was a poem written in 30,000 lines about the legendary history of ancient Britain. At this time, in 1215, a very major event took place known as Magna Carta, in which was concluded that from then on the law would be above the king. This shows how in 1215 only the foundations of the monarchy had begun to dwindle, that is, that the law started to be considered above the king. The other works of the time after the Norman conquest were Ormulum, which was written by Lincolnshire priest Orm in the same year as Magna Carta, 1215. There's another poem named The Owl and the Nightingale, which was written about 1220, the author of whom is very anonymous. We do not know about him. Robert Manning also wrote two works named Handling Sin, The Manual of Sins in 1303, Ironbite of Inwit, Remorse of Conscience in 1340. A very important event also took place in 1362 when a statute was passed which proclaimed that from then on all proceedings in the law court would be in English instead of French. It was a huge triumph for English, and English began to be spoken and written more from this period on. I also wanted to emphasize the fact that Christianity also was introduced into Kent, which is a province of England, by St. Augustine in 597 AD. And that was all from my side. Thank you for listening.